Good. I'd like to call this meeting to order. And can I get a roll call of commission members, please?
Commissioner Helfrey.
Here.
Commissioner Bourne. Here. Commissioner Cohn. Here. Commissioner Clayton.
Here.
Commissioner Depler, Commissioner Jackson, Commissioner Rubis, Chair Beatty. Here. Councilmember Brost and Mayor Garetano.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. So tonight on the agenda, we have two items for consideration for the site plan subcommittee. And then possibly a work session depending on time. So first on the agenda, PZ 118-92, the St. Louis Nursery Partnership. Mr. Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the Site Plan Subcommittee, I recognize most everybody in the audience, so I'm going to make the assumption there's no public comment at this stage, since as we get into the plan review components, certainly I think these are representatives of the two projects. I would just ask Mr. Newberry, is there anybody on Zoom that would like to speak?
I'm not seeing a hand raised, and one is definitely a representative of the petitioner.
Okay, thank you. Well, first of all, to the Site Plan Subcommittee, thank you for being here. We do appreciate it very much. Obviously, this is a little unusual. We usually do these meetings prior to our regularly scheduled regular meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission on the first Monday. But it just so happened we had two major projects, Good News Brewing Company and then the mixed use development, kind of come together at a point when we thought it appropriate to bring them forward and bring them forward as quickly as we can. So as if there are some opportunities for work to begin still in 2024, we'd like to offer them to the two petitioners. So that's part of the reason. And then obviously, as you know, we talked about having a third work session on our subdivision and development regulations. And so we do have that at tonight's agenda, if time permits. First and foremost, we do have a group from two different applicants. When the appropriate time comes, I'll ask them to introduce themselves. I know most of their names, but maybe obviously it'd be easier for them to introduce yourself. The first item, it does relate to Good News Brewing Company, and we do have the owner of the company, Dan Tripp, with us, so he'll be invaluable for questions I can't necessarily respond to, or you just want to know something about the company, which is a really interesting story and found great success in St. Charles County, and we think we'll find great success here in the city of Weld. A lot of information given to you. I want to acknowledge Good News Brewing Company. We had a lot of things moving it all at once. They've been very patient with our process, and we're at a point now where we've got a good set of plans. Plans have been reviewed by the department. The engineer of record has responded very well to the comments from the department. I'm very comfortable you have a good set of plans before you tonight for consideration. Similarly, Stock and Associates has done their good job of pulling together a lot of loose ends that all of a sudden appeared as we dealt into the plans, and unfortunately had the residential developer or the single family detached dwellings on the individual lots kind of pull out of the project late in the game. So we had to kind of redress the plans to make sure we could give you a set that if you approve it, you know what you're approving and not necessarily what might come in the future in terms of development. So a lot there. For those that are visitors, restrooms are outside the door. There's fresh coffee, cold drinks, and room temperature water. Please help yourself. This is pretty informal. We certainly want you to be comfortable as we go through the plans. To help with this process tonight, Ms. Ripito, Mr. Newberry, and I kind of put together a little summary sheet. The summary sheet isn't necessarily the substitute for the presentation of the department, just to help you understand kind of the main points of each project. I will note that oftentimes what ends up happening to the Planning and Zoning Commission is they make a recommendation, whether it's a change in ordinance in the case of Good News Brewing Company to accommodate use on an existing site, or in the case of the mixed use development, to basically take a greenfield site and develop it with something pretty special relative to our downtown district, the intersection of Main Street and Taylor Road. So we'll get into Good News Brewing Company first, and thanks to Mr. Newberry for having the image on the screen. If you're not familiar, I'm going to go give some background just to make sure that everybody understands kind of the components of it. And then we'll take questions from the commission. And then obviously, if there's anything that Mr. Tripp or his engineer of record or design team would like to add, we can certainly accommodate that and would encourage it. So the site's located on the southwest corner of Manchester Road and West Avenue. And like the other project we'll be considering tonight, the properties have an advantageous location. In both instances, the city of Wildwood, through either past development or public projects, have built their street improvements. So Manchester Road, in this case, for Good News Brewing Company, was phase two of our streetscape. So it has the standard streetscape and street requirements of the town center plan. A gentleman named Tom McLean Development, actually built West Avenue to our streetscape standards as part of his development of 2 phases of West Street Office Center. So each of these have our streetscape, and each of them meet the requirements of the town center plan. So that's the good news. Mr. Tripp had probably the desirable challenge to bring public sewer to this particular property. West County Feed has been on site since roughly the mid-1980s, so a long time. Predated, quite frankly, the extension of public sewer out to this area. And so with West County Feed and Supply, the type of use, more retail, and not having a lot of people in and out on any given day, and certainly not offering public restrooms, they were able to kind of step aside from public sewer and not have to do it and depend on an on-site system. Mr. Tripp, with what we expect to be a very successful restaurant and future microbrewery option. So what you see before you tonight is a project that will bring public sewer to this particular lot. And then incrementally, as we always know, once one lot gets it, future lots that don't will. Also, Tripp is providing stormwater management facilities consistent with the Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District. So both instances, major investments into the site by the petitioner, and certainly appreciated by the city of Wildwood. So to answer any questions relative to those two, public sewer will serve the new use, and we'll be addressing stormwater management for both MSD requirements and city standards. You'll see those on the utility page. This site is already served by public water as part of the public water district prior to Missouri American Water purchasing that the customers and bringing some water to the area. Our chair brought up the issue of just the quality of water service. Certainly it's an issue for some of the home developments in the vicinity. But I can assure you Missouri American Water Company is aware of it, working on it as we speak. They do have long-range plans to ultimately address the problem on both sides of Route 109 in our town center. The intent of Good News Brewing Company is to reuse the existing building where West County Feed and Supply is located. So what they intend to do is rehabilitate it and then reuse it. So very positive from that standpoint. And I believe Mr. Tripp has told us on many occasions as part of the attraction of the site, it's just the building and its kind of character. Along with that existing building, there is the intent to build a small stage, small pavilion, and then those activity areas that we talked about when we amended the ordinance, the bocce court, the activities area for, I think, cornhole or whatever it's called, and then the area for future food trucks in front or to the side of the building. Site is served by 31 parking spaces. We did not require an extensive amount of additional spaces based upon, we believe will be a phased development of the project. So as phases come online, we'll add additional parking as well. We think with the more structured parking and then the available access area to the south of the building, and if we do have a special event that just brings in a whole lot of people, we hope we'll be able to figure out a kind of a temporary parking situation to the west side to the south of the building. So parking is addressed according to the code. One of the key elements that we talked a lot about both at Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council was just the availability of live music. And Mr. Tripp, Good News Brewing Company again has responded to the code, and we're going to basically put some sound mitigation on both sides of the stage to the east or the east side of the stage. The stage is orientated toward the southwest, the commercial area. And I think something that I didn't think of, and certainly the department didn't incorporate, that they're going to basically provide the amplification system as the owner of property. So we won't have that variability of different bands or different individuals coming in and bringing their own and not knowing what's there and the volume associated with it. So just a lot of positives in terms of how we're addressing live music to ensure that the nearby residents are impacted as least as possible. Also note that this brewing company does have limited hours of operation relative to most restaurants. They close even on the weekends at 10 p.m. So we're not talking about late night live music or noise associated with the project. So I've talked about the bocce ball courts. I've talked about the cornhole area, or what I call the games area, sunshade shales over the game area. All these things we were discussed at Planning and Zoning Commission, City Council. There's also a storage container that will be placed to the south of the building. Storage container will be black. And then finally, we'll have a new trash enclosure as well. So all in all, what you have before you tonight is a plan perspective of the department must comply with the governing ordinance and any of the design criteria components contained in our manual, the city's manual. Final item I will note is there was a recent need to amend that site-specific ordinance. Planning and Zoning Commission endorsed a reduction in the setback for parking purposes along West Avenue from the old ordinance that St. Louis County approved, which was 50 feet to 10 feet. Again, remember looking at the side of the lot that abuts West Avenue, and then across West Avenue from this new use is just a vacant parcel. So we felt comfortable with that. With that, I'll conclude. I'm sure there are a number of questions from the Planning and Zoning Commission members relative to the department and its activities over the course of the last several months. And then again, once we address those questions or comments, Mr. Tripp will have an opportunity presentation. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murnich. Are there any questions from the commission? Commissioner Clayton.
I was curious about the container that's mentioned on one of the documents. I was curious about what that'll look like and what will its use be?
Well, from conversations, and Mr. Tripp, correct me if I'm wrong, it's pretty much the standardized shipping containers you see. So in terms of size, it's a 20-foot long by 8-foot wide and 9 feet height. It will be tucked behind the building to the south, so face south toward the vacant properties. And it used to be painted black to kind of just minimize its appearance relative to everything. And its use, I think, is just for storage of.
Yeah, we'll have electricity in there. We'll have our outdoor games, our cornhole games will go there. Boxes for, we're gonna be plastic only. We're not gonna have glass because of the outdoor facility. So we're gonna have large boxes of plastic containers, serving utensils.
Yes, sir.
The propane tank, is that area serviced by Spire?
the propane tanks are to be removed. Spire does provide service in the vicinity because their true customer base oftentimes is the residential properties that prefer gas over electric for.
Yeah. So you would convert to Spire gas rather than propane?
Yeah.
Yeah, the boat, I missed it. I was, the boat she coats, how many are you gonna have?
Phase one, just one.
This,
No, that's it.
Commissioner Helfrey?
So I'm excited about this. It looks really cool. I was gonna ask a question about the parking that you kind of addressed, and that was the required amount of parking spaces that we have, but then when you look at the drawing of how many seats, it looks like there's gonna be more people, hopefully there'll be a lot more people than parking maybe. And so that gravel road that goes around the back, the south side of that, people be able to park on that? Is that what you were talking about?
yes. For all, for the perspective of the department, the gravel road. That U-shape is being driven in part by the fire district, just so as they have access from 2 points of entry or exit, let's say. In discussions with Good News Brewing Company, obviously the city could have requested additional parking spaces based upon just a number of tables and chairs, which is the component we use. It's generally one space for every 3 seats, and then 2 seats for every 3 employees on the maximum shift. So depending on how we would have reviewed it, Good Brewing Company uses picnic tables. They use traditional seating. I think they're high tops primarily. And so from that perspective, we probably could have pressed for some additional spaces. But we also knew the investment to basically reclaim the site, reuse it for use that has been identified by our residents for years and years. We wanted that investment to go more so into public sewer and then stormwater management. Now, saying that, it's not typical of the department to kind of have to balance that. Usually just ask and we get what we want, or the development doesn't proceed. But in this case, we know that there are future phases planned if this is successful, and that's when we can catch up with parking when the project is more capitalized, so to speak. It has been successful.
So it's okay then for people to park there. I mean, that's okay, right?
Yes.
Good.
In this particular instance, yes, we are going to accommodate that.
Then I have one more question, and that was just, you said that they are able to get sewer. So was there a septic system prior to this? So
Yes,
is that removed now?
Yes, as part of MSD's permitting process, they'll require the septic tank be disconnected from the current use. Most what typically they do is they crush it, they fill it, they empty it, clean it, they fill it with rock and crush it.
Okay, thank you.
And on the parking, is there parking spots on West?
College Avenue. We went more with the standard that's in our specifications, so narrower streets, curb and gutter, and then sidewalks with street trees, et cetera. We didn't require parking on street because it wasn't called for. Will people park on it? It's not restricted parking right now, so they would block the lane and leave just one open, but like I say, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Sure, Mr.
For some reason, I thought there were parking spots along there. I guess I'm just thinking of Taylor, right?
Surprisingly, not even on New College Avenue is there. Which, you know, from my perspective, probably should have been something we considered, but we followed the plan. And what ultimately the original plan thought was that if you more office and we park more off street than on street. What we're seeing though is the interest has been more residential and now more service than office.
I mean, for me, selfishly, parking doesn't matter because I don't intend to drive there if I go. But I'm just curious.
Well, we hope a lot of people, and I didn't mention, but what Mr. Tripp has done with his company and his partners, they are out along a lot of the trail networks over in St. Charles County. So they actually get a large crowd of bicyclists. And as part of this plan, we are dedicated an area just by the building to be bicycle parking. So we hope a lot of people come off the trail network on their bicycles or walk there. And so we're keeping our fingers crossed a little bit, but in this particular instance, given what we know what our residents have been asking for in terms of restaurants and places to basically come to get enough community. We're willing to take the risk on parking.
No, that's fair. I don't know. To me, too much parking can kill the vibe of places like this.
I mean, no offense to our neighbors to the east, but if you drive down Manchester Road, you'll see gigantic parking lots that are underutilized significantly, even on some of the most busiest, what you would consider retailers or holidays.
Commissioner Rubis?
Is there gonna be bicycle racks or
Commissioner Cohn?
Mr. Tripp, just curious, the bocce ball court is 60 feet long. Is that longer than that standard?
Is that just something longer?
Longer than 60 feet?
Yep.
A long way to throw a bocce
Yeah.
ball.
It's,
that's regulation bocce?
Thank you.
I think we may have an expert on bocce on our commission.
Yeah, that would.
You've mentioned a few times there being a phased development plan. Can someone walk us through what that is, please?
With the permission of the chair, I'd like to ask Mr. Tripp to do that.
That'd be wonderful.
yeah, so I mean,
Go right ahead.
if the sales come in and the people are showing up, we would like to, so the south side is all gonna be grass area, and I'll say that, but we would build that out with a future, I think we called it for a 4,000 square foot covered area that would be more of an AstroTurf community gathering, just a place for the weather that they could still gather and be there and add some more bocce ball courts, hopefully.
So it'd just be outdoor entertainment space will be added in the
Yes,
future?
yes, and bathrooms, restrooms, definitely more restrooms. Right now we have 4 water closets, two male, 2 female, and then the goal would be to add a future bathroom outside and then just open pavilion, garage doors are kind of our theme, so something like that. Or again, future goals. And then if things go well and we continue to grow our company, we'll need more beer. And so we will outgrow our existing brewery in Augusta. So we were interested in this property because we have an opportunity to grow in phases and we could build a full brew house on the hill, which would allow us to have a loading dock so we can load up, transportation. So that's another reason why the curve kind of driveway is appealing too. So trucks can, come everything down. Again, that's the future. There's no plans right now at all.
Understood. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, with your permission. And we kind of took into account the phase development. Without success, but we're basing decision to incorporate it into the site specific ordinance. Because they have been so successful in another.
Yeah, one of the items that has come up over the years from residents in that area there is safe crosswalk across Manchester Road, with the majority of the homes coming from the north side, Manchester Road. We don't have any of those signalized or lighted crosswalks. We only have a painted crosswalk over at Grover Ridge Drive that would likely be used to cross over and get to West Avenue. But I know in the past, talked about potentially identifying that area there, that spot perhaps, as an area where we can install one of those solar powered crosswalks that would make it safe, because we don't provide safe passage. That'll be the big complaint afterwards when everybody's trying to get there. So, and you have a lot of homes that are right there. So I wonder if that's something the city can take on, and perhaps maybe if a TGA fund is allowable to use for some improvement like that. Maybe we look to invest that money to put one of those solar powered crosswalk lights is my thought, because we did put 3 of them east of Taylor Road. But to me, it's important that we don't forget the residents that are west of Taylor Road.
Well, Mr. Brown's on Zoom tonight, so he is participating. Sure, he heard the comment. The only qualifying statement I would make is, as you know, you crest over by Grover Ridge Drive, the Manchester Road drops and turns. So when I pull out of Iowa Gill, it counts at Windrush. You have to pay attention on westbound traffic.
That is getting to be more and more of a blind intersection.
As the trees are growing.
Yeah, by default, when I leave my house, I go to 109 no matter where I'm going. Just with the roundabouts, and my hatred of the light at Manchester and 109. I always find it easier to pull out, go north, move around, even if I'm going southbound.
Well, Mr. Brown, our Director of Public Works, should have a smile on his face because that's what roundabouts are supposed to do. Direct turning movements, left turns primarily, I think you go through the roundabout because it's safer.
Well, yeah, my question would be for Director Brown to see what he thinks about that. I know he gets asked a lot from other parts of the city for those. But I think we might have a good business case here with the business going in over there and a significant population. And none of them in that area. And perhaps we do have access to some funds that could be used for something like that, whether it's Prop P, if that's a possibility, or even if the TGA, that counts as some kind of improvement there for the road, given that most of those homes have probably paid TGA funds for that purpose.
Go ahead.
You want me to respond? Certainly, Mayor Garetano, we could certainly take a closer look at that, and we are getting into the budgeting session for next year, so those are very popular projects, the installation of the flashing lights, and relatively inexpensive relative to a lot of other improvement projects, so we could certainly take a closer look at it. One of the concerns I think there would be the sight distance, make sure we have safe sight distance for a crosswalk at that location, but it's a good idea.
Or at least the existing crosswalk at Grover Ridge Drive. I think there's, from what I could see in the satellite photo, there are painted lines there.
Yeah,
That would be, yeah.
Yeah, the main crosswalk, like you said, is there at Grover Ridge. And on Grover Ridge, I feel like the sight lines aren't too bad. And west, I think they're probably still okay. Viola Gill is, to me, where the blind spot is.
So it might be best, because I think too, Viola Gill being so close to 109, traffic could back up quite quickly if that light is pressed. And so we'd probably want to encourage folks to cross over at Grover Ridge, even if it's a little bit out of the way, because it's safer and there's better sight distance. But I think that might make a good case for that over there. So, yeah, Rick, if you can keep that in your mind as you look at the budget and what potentially we can do to fund that, that would be great.
To Mr. Garetano's comment about traffic generation assessment fee, part of the reason too, we've accommodated maybe a lesser number of spots is that all intents and purposes, we're trading out the existing spaces of West County feed and supply to Good News Brewing Company. And with our traffic generation assessment fee requirements, we don't charge for existing spaces, only new. And so there will not be a traffic generation assessment fee in this particular instance until the future phases.
Are you gonna have heating for the outdoor part?
We have it, we have gas lines run to the area, so we won't do that in the beginning. We'll wait until we get some cash, but we'll have gas lines there.
Any other questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair, I would just ask if Mr. Tripp would like to add anything else to his presentation, and I know his engineer of record is on Zoom, so.
No, I've done this in many municipalities and I just appreciate everyone here. You guys have been excellent to work with. So just thank you for all your input and help making this happen. I'm excited.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you for coming.
I'm looking forward to an opening date.
Me too.
Mr. Chair, since there's no other comments or questions from the commission, Mr. Tripp and his design team have had their opportunity. The department would respectfully request authorization to prepare a final report.
Is there a motion by Commissioner Alfred, second by Commissioner Rubus? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Mr. Tripp, thanks again. Mr. Storm, thank you.
All right, next on the agenda, we've got PZ 20 and 21-22 Greenwood Development. Mr. Dinich.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I would like to introduce some of the folks that worked very hard on this project, and I think they deserve the acknowledgement. Particularly Tom, he is probably the key person in all of this besides Mr. Cohn, the property owner and financier. But just like you could introduce yourself to the members, that'd be great.
Tom Kyman, founder of Mia Rose Holdings. We're just tickled pink to be partnered with Ed and the family. Just an amazing location, and have been to the city 3 times in an attempt to do something like this, and have failed all 3 times. So I'm just really hopeful we're getting very, very close.
Right side. Zach Dietz, Director of Construction.
I'm Jared Cooper, Roseman and Associates Architect.
Eric Fisher with Stock and Associates, civil engineer.
And George Stock with Stock Associates, happy to be here this evening and was with Tom on those other fields.
Well, again, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just think it's important because obviously this is a major project for our town center area. Thank you. Tom Lee had an opportunity to speak tonight. He would have told you that when he was economic development manager, one of the consistent things we continue to hear year in and year out is our business community needed rooftops to support what they want to do in our town center. That's particularly true for our restaurants and our service facilities and our shopping centers, et cetera. So it's very nice to see a project close to fruition on that site. But there have been other projects proposed on it, one particular pride place that for a long time we hope would be successful and ultimately couldn't move forward in the current conditions. And so, yes, this is a great opportunity. And obviously from the department's perspective, we're very excited about it. Didn't mean we didn't review the plans with a fine tooth comb, but we were certainly excited about the project coming forward. I would also note Ms. Ripito is in attendance tonight. She oversees our architectural review board process, and Mia Rosa Holdings and Greenwood Development have submitted their architectural elevations to the city's architectural review board. And I believe on September 12th, those plans were approved by our city's architectural review. And I referenced that for the most part because one of the attachments that Mr. Newberry provided on tonight's meeting is the architectural elevations that was presented to the city board. I do want to call out the architect, Roseman and Associates. We did appreciate very much cooperation as we went through initially a fairly long list of questions and comments we responded to, and that goes to both the apartment developer and the property. So thank you. If you're not familiar, this particular project is located on the southwest corner of Main Street and Taylor Road. So kind of, from the town center perspective, downtown district, it's the primary intersection in all of town center. From the perspective of the department. I say that because obviously there's intersections like Route 100 and Route 109 that have greater traffic volumes. But in those cases, the development pattern is very different. There's roundabouts and the speeds are greater. So this really is kind of the primary place. Knowing that and acknowledging as well, that's why the architectural review component that Ms. Ripperto has was very, very important. It's going to be a signature building. It is a single building. It's an L-shaped building. The longer portion of that L runs onto Main Street, and the shorter portion of that L follows down south, follows from the intersection south down Taylor Road. At this time, it's 188 units. Family development. There's a mix, I believe, of just a couple studios, 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. Pretty close. Comment can respond if there are questions regarding that mix. It was better than 9, well, it's Ms. Ripperto. So it's a mix of units, which is a positive as well. First floor on Main Street, the biggest issue that had to be addressed from the architectural review board's standpoint, as well as the internal review by the Department of Public Works planning, is just how that first floor on Main Street would be used. Always on the westernmost end, next to the theater, was to be a restaurant with an outdoor patio. Almost a can't miss location because you have the theater next door, you have the hotel across the street, and another successful business, Milk and Honey. North side of Main Street at Fountain Place. So from the perspective of the department, the storefronts from Taylor Road west along the first portion of the building to East Gateway, that'll be the amenities for the apartments themselves, their offices, conference room, community space, and all intents and purposes, I think there's going to be a workout area as well. From Fountain Place to the theater, that is now shown as restaurant, retail, commercial, true commercial. There was some discussion about dog daycare and storage. Certainly the architectural review board kind of weeded that out a little bit. Now we have on our plan sheet those uses that are consistent with the downtown district designation. So, yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I got confused, Joe. Did you say along Taylor Road, it's gonna be the use for the apartments?
Main Street.
Along Main Street will be their
Taylor
buildings?
Road, west on Main Street to
Mhm.
Fountain Place.
Okay,
That'll be the area that the apartments will use for their basically community purposes, which means there'll be activity in association with it that you'll be able to see to the evening, because again, there's community facility, there's the workout room, et cetera,
and then facing Taylor Road will be
apartments.
on the first floor?
Yes, ma'am. And what
So there's not gonna be any
drives
retail?
that- No retail, no commercial, no service. What drove that portion of the discussion, Ms. Helpfrey, at least from the department perspective, is the grade. So from Main Street south on Taylor Road toward Manchester Road, you have pretty significant grade change. So from that perspective, trying to work with the existing grade and getting retail or some type of access to retail service, whatever it might be, it seems a little bit more something that what we would develop from that. Now, saying that, we took into account the break in land use, and so from that perspective, we're doing our best to kind of engage those units to the street so that it isn't a blank wall. And we've added, obviously, the units themselves. We've improved the wall character, and then obviously we have a great deal of landscape. Across the street, we have the gym facility, Edward Jones, the new Martini restaurant. The anchor there has always been that little pocket park that Deerbrush Markets installed. So we think it works. It's not the perfect situation. But we also have a reality that we don't have a strong retail market for all intents and purposes in West St. Louis County, in my opinion, or they wouldn't be tearing down Chesterfield Mall. And we're all guilty of kind of harming brick and mortar from a retail standpoint because we shop on the internet. So I think the decision was made by city council, and I'll let the mayor address this. Retail you can't fill because nobody benefits from it. And we saw that at the Deerbergs Town Center. They did the liner buildings, those buildings along Taylor Road at the behest of the city. They built the building, they didn't even put the glazing in, and they sat there for a long while looking like they had been abandoned. So I think experience has taught us not to push on, let's say, commercial uses that don't have a commercial future.
So this part is, it will have commercial, but this part will. Looking at the,
Taylor Road, west on Main Street to the theater, that'll be the activity area. You'll see that bustling with activity. You'll see the storefronts. You'll see access to the storefronts. Main Street south on Taylor Road, at least for that portion of the L, it'll be residential in nature.
yeah, no, I'm just talking Main Street. There's the pass through.
Yep.
The left side of that will be the apartment residential. The right side of that will have storefronts.
Yes, but again, remember the apartment residential, that will not be where people live. It's where the activities. that are
Right,
offered.
like the workout center and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's key amongst, we did that in Prime Place as well.
Mhm.
Prime Place had a restaurant that would have served the residents of the senior orientated housing project. But they also wanted to do some of their activities for the residents in that first floor area.
Yeah.
So certainly we can talk about it, but
Right.
from the standpoint of the department, and I think Mr. Cohen could probably speak to this more, and Mr. Kyman as well, and Mr. Stock, who travels the country. It's tough. It's a tough retail environment. It's a tough retail environment unless you're on an interstate or a major arterial, where you have the traffic volumes that are going to basically make the risk for the investment. Gentlemen, refer to you.
Talk about your comment about a major interstate or major street. If you drive down Chesterfield Airport Road now, you'll see at least a half a dozen for lease signs. And you can't find a larger strip center or a better location, with Highway 6440 to get people there easily. And they're struggling. I shouldn't say struggling, but they have vacancies. If you take Manchester Road from 141 west to Wildwood, there's no absence of for lease signs. There are shopping centers that may have only one tenant. So when you look at those areas that have the advantage of, to a certain extent, mass transit, to have high traffic counts, much higher density, and they have problems filling it up. Obviously, when you have a municipality where everything west of Highway 109 is 3-acre zoning, the probability of successful retail or service type tenants with really no daytime trade to say is problematic is an understatement.
And over the years, and Tom Lee could speak to this very well, my understanding of many of the major retailers across the country, they use a 5-mile radius circle. And in years of talking with them about potential locations, this was particularly true in the case of Target. East of Route 109, we do okay. At 2.5 miles works great. West of Route 109, it's like a dead zone to them. And basically said, we don't break from this formula no matter what the other demographics might say.
Which is why Ellisville has been exploding the last 5 years. So,
Like I say, is it the best case scenario? Other than milk and honey, use on Main Street in Wildwood Town Center, Coleman Properties Project, service, it's workouts, restaurants, it's along those lines. And Milk and Honey is a mix. There's some, it's a restaurant, so to speak, serves wine, things like that. Does have some retail. Yeah, it's tough retail.
Is this going to be apartments for rent or condos for sale?
For rent.
For rent. Is there gonna be, is there any forethought about whether or not it'll be Airbnb, short-term rental available, or
I don't see how
We
the
have
additional
an ordinance.
apartments for rent.
against that? Okay.
Is there a city ordinance already in place that
Is
would
that-
prohibit
30
that?
days or less or something like that.
Yeah, we passed that a couple years ago,
Yeah.
or clarified it, I guess.
From the perspective of the city, a short-term rental is a bed and breakfast. Really, and only allowed, they only allowed in the non-urban resident district under a conditional use permit. Everything else has to have a long-term lease. Typically is 30 days or more. Now, Mia Rosa Holdings, I think Mr. Kamen's been kind of modest with us tonight, but he has major multiple family developments across the region and in the outstate area as well. Please, you might like to know something about the company.
We're gonna make a major investment at this very prominent site. It's gonna be great. Yeah, we've got we've got 18 assets, similar in nature to this, and I think it's a great mix. 188 units, about 54% of them are ones and studios, about almost 40%. Just under 40% are twos, and then we've got some threes. I think we had 16 to 18 3-bedrooms, so it's a good mix. We've got about 7 different floor plans. So the pricing point for the rents will range anywhere from 1,600 all the way up to about 3,000. So wide variety. But you know, in hearing the group speak about like the mixture of retail, I think, you know, the ordinance as it's set up to have the storefront and the retail use on Main Street and then the residential trailer, and then all the parking hid by the buildings back behind. And back behind there will also be where our pool and all the outdoor amenity space is going to be. It's just it's going to be very, this is going to be a very upper end, high end. And I think the elevations, I mean, the exterior materials are going to be the Nichiha product. And it just looks just extremely classy. Just excited about it.
So,
I'm familiar with the job product. It's the upgrade of, let's say, the hardy board, the common name fiber cement siding. Yeah, it's just a good product, and we're hoping Latitude North 38 does eventually move forward. We've asked them to consider the same because it's a better product. And so that it will last the test of time, and we'll make sure that project shines on that major intersection.
We typically 95% of our leases will be anywhere from 12 months to 18 months. So there's really the shortest term lease will typically do like a 6-month lease, and then there's 30% premium to do something short like that.
So creative.
well, he answered my question, but I do have another one. And there was one of these drawings. It looked like there were a series of garages. Yes, okay. And so I'm trying to determine where those are in this drawing. And I think these are, have we the garage?
Mr. Newberry's gonna,
You know what I mean? Right? I think that.
initially, Ms. Helping, the garages are shown here. So
Okay.
that's the extension of Eastgate Lane,
Mhm.
yellow. That will actually be a private holding with a public easement, so residents and others, visitors will have the right to access Eastgate Lane if they choose. And the garages are shown here.
Perfect. Are there gonna be like security gates or anything? No?
I mean, the garages, of course, will have garage doors on them, but there's no
I meant to the
secondary.
property, no, yeah.
Just, you know, so the highlights of the plan for these.
I mean, it comes.
So kind of mentioned, there is a community pool.
It doesn't go with the.
It's also a dog park.
This
small dog
apartment has a
park.
garage.
Where's that?
This is the
Oh, got
dog
it.
park area, this is the pool.
Thank you.
So again, it's in conjunction with the portion of the project that will have the community amenities for the residents of the apartment units. There's some EV spaces over here. One of the things that was discussed at architectural review board was the disposal of trash, the trash enclosures. The primary one is here. And then the shared one over here, which is existing, also will serve. So I think it's important to note that these buildings, this building is so it's all interior hallways to the units. Some apartments, you know, have the center stairs that have been paid off to the units on either side. So from the perspective here, someone living on the southernmost end on Taylor Road will have an interior hall to the trash enclosure area. So again, it's, I think, been thought through pretty thoroughly. And then from the architectural review board's perspective, we did add that access, so to speak, to the existing trash enclosure. That was key to the members, as I recall, because of the restaurant, just making sure that they had easy access to a trash enclosure for disposal of the staff that are dead. Again, just a lot of amenities. I also identified in the summary, we'll be making all of the pedestrian connections from the existing loop trail around the detention basin that's been in place for a number of years. So that trail will continue out to Taylor Road. Complementing the trail will be a system of sidewalks that will be both the interior to the side and then obviously connect into our existing streetscape on Taylor Road and Main Street. So really nice connected development from that perspective. One of the issues Mr. Newberry and Mr. Rito and I continue to struggle with is just stormwater management. Plan's been before the Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District. They have addressed the comments from the district itself. So, you know, these are, again, bioretention basins.
Retention?
Bioretention basins like we have over in the villages at Brightleaf and Main Street Crossing, which are driving the residents crazy there. And residents are crazy, elected officials get a lot of calls and we do too. So we're hoping we can make these basins something that's a little bit better. And in this particular case, we don't have to depend on an homeowners association to maintain, which is always kind of difficult situation for residents. And so from the perspective here, it'll be a commercial entity that maintains them. So MSD requires them to sign an agreement for a maintenance agreement. But still, it's a tough, just tough. We're really struggling with the retention basins.
Okay, so dumb it down for me. So what I have in my neighborhood are retention basins, right?
You have at least 2, if not 3 detention basins, meaning they're
All the
dry,
lakes.
most of the time. And
No, the lakes.
yeah, I'll get to those.
Okay.
So you have a mix. So the majority though are dry basins
Okay.
that are kind of tucked into the wooded areas. In the far northeast corner, where you live, you have a lake, retention. And then in the new portion, the addition, you have the series of lakes. There's also about a couple of dry basins, smaller ones in there.
So
So you don't have bioretention because when those projects were approved, water quality component wasn't in place.
would, the people are complaining, is it due to like mosquitoes or odor or what seems to be the issue with these?
Well, in Brightleaf, the issue primarily is the side slope areas are extremely steep, so it's difficult to maintain even for the maintenance company. The basins were obviously dug out. So what was left is poor soil, so ground cover is hard to establish. And then in the basin itself, they use rock berms to help to create the forebay and manage the water. So those are just white riprap that form a pattern that looks kind of out of place. And then the plantings themselves, if they're not maintained properly and consistently, weeds take over because the birds are in the area. So, and then landscaping is difficult because MSD doesn't necessarily want it on the side slope areas, so we do it around the perimeter, and the perimeter stuff is died.
So how
Yes,
deep is
bro.
this? It's even with my glasses.
720 to.
How can you
Looks like
see that?
14 feet.
It was MSD's plan.
So what are your thoughts for this? I mean,
Well, tomorrow we're meeting with MSD and the residents over at Right Leaf to talk about the basins. I may have better insights by then.
well, for this one, what would,
I think the biggest culprit of failures of bioretention basins is silt. And when the silt gets in, they don't infiltrate in the water ponds and the plants die and they become unsightly. You do not want to put the soil media in a bioretention basin until all the tributary area is stabilized. And I don't mean stabilized with straw. I'm talking about sod, mature grass. Joe, you hit the nail on the head. The unstable trying to get grass to grow means silt's getting in those bioretention basins. The perfect world is to have those slopes fully vegetated, whether it's sod or it's mature grass. Then you put the 4 feet of permeable soils, the pea gravel, and you put the plants and they function well. I just came from Tesson Ridge, South St. Louis County. Beautiful, most beautiful bioretention basin. Everything's green around it. Takes a while and it takes an expense. This, we're limited, as to what's tributary. It's pretty much rooftops and parking lots. So not a lot of silt. The only silt that can get in our basins is really just the slopes you see that we can control. So from a commercial setting, it's easier to build large subdivisions with large tributary areas and not well vegetated. It could be a year, 2 years, 3 years where you're struggling and you have to take all the dirt out because once they're clogged, you have to take the soil media out and put it back in. So the key is, don't put the soil in until you have everything stabilized and just use it as a silt basin during construction. Then you get all the silt out, everything stabilized, you put it in. This, I call this is residential, but it's a commercial,
Right.
it's more of a commercial application because we have, the B&B Theater, the parking lot, our parking lots, East Gate coming through. It's not like we have a vast majority of green area coming to our bio. So I'm very confident about this. The residential, there's no question, you have to work it. The key is the construction phasing and when you bring them online, you gotta wait until everything's mature. That's the key.
so first of all, thank you very much
Sure.
because you explained it, where I wasn't quite sure.
Yeah, the beautiful ones, you go to Spady Road in Clayton, where the library is at I-64, you see gorgeous. The commercial application where it's more hard surface going to them and not so much green area. Then they're beautiful and the plants are beautiful. I can give you examples of beautiful ones. Mason Road at I-64, the Children's Specialty Clinic, across the street, the Mason Point Lutheran Senior Service, their bioretentions are perfect. But again, they're done with.
It's easier with parking lot runoffs than some.
It is, then a lot of grass area that, is sparse, it doesn't have grass and you see the silt get it. And the silt is the culprit, it's the killer of those basins.
Okay, so when you look at this drawing, this part that hopefully we'll build in the future, that's lower ground than this. So once you have this established, when they go into do construction on this, that won't affect this. Is
No,
it?
it's below it. Yeah,
Right,
you're
so it
right,
won't-
that's lower.
That won't affect it. Good, okay.
Right, that's
Okay.
correct. Yeah, the tributary area of that bioretention is just what you see on the picture. It's the
Perfect.
buildings and the parking lots.
Okay. And then so how long, you said it could take up to a year. So when this is done, are they responsible for a year until it gets up and running or when?
Forever. It's the maintenance
We do
agreement.
annual-
Okay.
It never goes away. Forever.
You have to do annual inspections and submit those to MSD, and if you
Right.
don't submit the annual inspections, you get fined. I mean, it's kind of a racket, frankly.
Well, it's like Joe said, from 2008 to 2011, there were sand filters because we only had to do water quality. 2011, they introduced volume reducing BMPs. Gotta suck the water into the ground or put it in the plants and go back up in the air. That's when you got bioretention basins. You only got them after 2011. Between 11 and 08, you had sand filters. Between 8 and before, you had dry detention basins or wet lakes.
So I'm a big fan of trees and leaves breaking the water down before it gets to the ground. So how are the trees looking? Cause I don't see a lot of trees.
Well, there is a landscape component. For better or worse, really, the only tree removal is, from my perspective, on the southern tip of the
There's not a lot.
pickleball courts. And that's because obviously we wanted to take advantage of the site, the generosity of Greenberg Development to donate the site to the city, and then we went up with the 4 pickleball courts there. And obviously, we're going to fund the construction, but we've had cooperation with Greenberg Development and Stockton Associates. I think we have a nice plan. We have the 4 pickleball courts.
Yeah.
10-foot high fence around it. That's vinyl coated black. We've got 4 benches. We've got a temporary enclosure for a restroom facility. As I say, we've got some bike racks, things along those lines, water pump, et cetera. So, and 18 parking spaces to service, which I think is a good number. So,
And street trees along the way?
well, street trees are in place already on Main Street and Taylor Road. Any that are damaged by construction will be replaced, but on the interior portions, yes. And you can find it, and actually have exceeded in some instances.
Thank you.
Since you brought up the pickleball, will they be lighted?
That's a good question. Facial lighting.
There is lighting shown.
But, you know, that's always, you know, in Wildwood, dark sky is valued.
It's right next to Deerberg's.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
So I guess from that perspective, yes, they're lighted.
I do think
Well-
you might have to, if there is going to be lighting, you need to be aware and respectful of the homes that are gonna be on the other side of Manchester Road. And
Once
what
again.
noise that creates at night. You know, I don't know what kind of noise pickleball is gonna do if people
Clink.
playing at night. Yeah. I think that would be an issue.
So my point is,
Neighborhood.
there's nice nights in October, November, February, March, where it's daylight ends at like 5 or 6 o'clock, but people want to do stuff until 9 o'clock.
Well, I
So-
think that's the thing that needs to be determined is what is the right time?
Mhm.
Because otherwise you're gonna have folks who really don't have any kind of barrier. You know, from where those pickleball courts are, you can look straight through across Manchester Road, across the pond, up into the homes of Oak Park, up on that hill. So just like today, they can see all of the town center, all the way to the movie theater.
Mhm.
And so I think that's what you need to see is what is the right time for that noise to
Yeah.
stop?
Well, you're not knocking down all the trees, are you, over there?
No.
So,
Oh,
I
in fact,
mean,
Yeah,
they
I mean.
they live in town center. They've got to expect some.
Yeah, my only point is, if like, when my daughter joined the tennis team this year, and so my wife, her sister played tennis in high school, so they've been going out and play. If they want to go later in the evening, they gotta drive to Ellisville or Baldwin, because our only tennis courts are Lafayette and Eureka High School, and I don't know about Eureka, we'd go to Lafayette because it's closer, but when the sun goes down, you can't play anymore.
Is that the case there?
Yeah. Mhm.
And I mean, assume that's because of the residential area that surrounds it.
Well, even though there's the football field right next to it.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying they gotta be constant on. Ellisville, they're at Weaver Park, there's homes right behind it. And they have a timer on the lights.
I think that it's just, again, now have to be determined what is the right time.
well, and I'll
Yeah.
also argue for the new residents in the apartments. They deserve a protection from over lighting or extended lighting.
Mhm.
You know, not all of our facilities are intended to meet every need of every resident. And so, you know, people who work late, I'm sorry, sometimes we have to make decisions to keep people out of our parks, so people that live by our parks aren't unneeded. Now,
I mean, and I'm not saying they gotta be available all night long. I'm just saying 9, 10 o'clock when everything else shuts down.
Are they gonna be spotlights? I mean, Deerworks has got parking lot lights in the
lighting
restaurant.
requirements. They'll meet our outdoor lighting requirements, so they'll be fully shielded. But the problem we'll have is to meet our outdoor lighting requirements, we'll probably have to address the pole height. The taller the pole, the more we have to increase the number of poles, and lighting is just a difficult situation out here. Throw it in there with stormwater. It's just tough at times, and night skies value. Mr. Coe?
May I? It's not just a concern about lighting. I was under the impression that the pickleball courts were not going to be lit. And it's not just about light trespass, but the other is the sound of pickleball.
Yeah.
Pickleball is not a quiet sport. Forgetting about the enthusiasm of the players, just the back and forth of whacking that wiffle ball is a lot of noise. So if we start to light those courts and extend the time past, say, dusk or whenever, we're going to have issues with noise pollution as well as light pollution. So if I have anything to do with it, I would say there'll be no lights. If someone wants to pay later at night, the light from the Deerberg's parking lot would be sufficient, or they can have glowing balls to use.
So how high is the fence gonna be around it?
10 feet.
I know in some places down in Florida or place down there, they put sound curtains up around the
We
fence.
could certainly, it will be our facility.
Yeah.
So obviously we'll be the letter of the law aspects, whether it be
Put
noise,
that in the budget.
lighting. So
So if you run the electricity to have lighting and then you put the courts in and you say you have them go for about 6 months and see what the sound complaints are. And then if the people in the adjoining areas don't say it's too loud, then maybe you could put lights in. The electricity's already there because you built it when you did the infrastructure. No? Am I getting a stink look from you?
I don't want to counter what Mr. Cohen said, but I play a little pickleball and I don't find it to be an overly loud sport personally. I would say the voices back and forth and, teasing your opponent, when you make a great shot, it's probably much louder than the sound of the paddle and the ball. Frankly, I would think that any traffic on Old Manchester would be much louder than that pickleball and that paddle.
Joe, this is, what do we need to do from your perspective to move this project along?
as with the reviewing company, I will, when we conclude our discussion, I'll ask for a motion to prepare the final. So again, I want to describe the pickleball courts as clearly as I can. Mr. Cohen, the property owner will donate the land to the city. The city has set aside funds originally for a set of pickleball courts in Community Park. We retained that money and carried it over. And in 2025, our intent is to increase it to meet basically the design we had before the Planning and Zoning Commission tonight. So we'll be building it. The city will be building it. So if there's concerns about lighting and sound, we can address them, but it has a cost. And is that cost borne out by, let's say, a handful of people that want to play at 8 o'clock at night? That's a decision for the mayor and city council. Right.
Right now, I think we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There've been a lot of communities that have done similar projects, so we can learn, ask what's worked best. I think there's a lot of good data and information that we can gather to figure out what are the operating hours, what works best. So I think we'll look to that information.
I think it's phenomenal that you're putting the courts in. It's a great addition to the city.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I see them getting used in Bowen and Manchester after dark.
Well, and not to sound like some, I don't know if Bob would ever really wanted to be like Baldwin. And
I was just gonna say.
Well, all right, I get that, but the demand is there.
I'm just
And
saying,
as someone who moved to the town center hoping to drive less, I drive more than I ever had to.
and I apologize about that, but there's a reason that we take our time with projects, and sometimes projects don't work out, but when they do, they're great projects in my mind.
Well, I stand by what I said, and I would hope that we put in these pickleball courts and we look at it and give ourselves a time and say, okay, did this work out? Is it too loud? Do we need the light? And then revisit it and see if that's something that can be done.
I'll talk with Mr. Stock and see how we might be able to phase in, or at least pre-plan for, let's say, future lighting if we can do.
Yeah, I think that, just don't close the door on it, is what I'm saying.
Certainly, it's not my decision. Again, I keep falling back to the Planning and Zoning Commission recommends, Mayor and City Council.
These are all good questions and your input's important because this is probably the first major project this city has seen in over a decade here in the town center. We've seen a lot of individual homes. We have not seen, other than maybe about 10, maybe a little around 10 years ago when the plaza at Main went up. That's the last major building. And then before that, it's the movie theater and where we're sitting in right now, which is City Hall. So we have not seen any development commercial wise or anything like this. And so I think it is important to get it right. And what you're doing is right on point as to questions.
Just a little interesting fact, like every partnership that's involved in this project is all local. So we've got the family, we've got Mia Rose, we're here, all of our engineering team, our architectural team, our construction team, both the COO and one of the vice presidents of our construction team both live in Wildwood. So it's just, we've got the equity, our bank's a local bank, like everybody involved is local. So we're all very focused on, the community aspect of like really making sure this is something really special. So.
I appreciate that. And that's really where that is. That is the heart of our town center. I mean, everyone will drive past that every day as they come into town center.
I mean, there's a rooftop patio. I thought we were gonna talk about that a little bit. It's gonna be really, really neat right at the corner of Main and Taylor.
The restaurant, is the restaurant off the street restaurant, or is it a restaurant for the facility?
It's for the general public.
Oh,
Directly across from the movie theater and Milk and Honey where they have their existing patio. There'll be a fair amount of outdoor seating. And I think just the synergy of the movie theater, the Village Green will be up and running by then. Milk and Honey's activity, all those things will drive to a more successful restaurant site that exists in the current
rising
environment.
tide lifts
What's
all
that?
boats. A rising tide lifts all boats.
I mean, it's just a lot of activation, 188 units. I mean, you're maybe 300-ish folks once it's fully stabilized and fully occupied. I mean, hopefully that brings some activation. I think I mentioned this in one of the ARB conversations. I'm like, the senior facility, a little sleepy, I think, but not a senior, just market rate for all types of folks. I really feel like that will bring more people to the retails. I mean, I know we've had a couple conversations with a couple different restaurateurs. So no promises, but I think once it's built and stabilized, it's gonna come around. It's great.
You don't come to town center over the weekend. We were all here for Celebrate Wildwood. The hotel's very, very busy on the weekends. I think it'll benefit from the restaurant, particularly now that Benedetto's and Main is closed.
Farmers market.
So like I say, we have some assets that we sometimes forget about in the theater and the hotel. Andres Dewani was in town for the originals for Town Center. He said, if you can get a theater and a hotel in Town Center, you're doing very well. thanks to Mr. Cohn and just by someone walking in one day saying, I'd like to build a hotel in town center. I was like, really?
Well, okay, so I have a question about the rooftop patio. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so it will be right on the corner of Taylor and Main, kind of perched up top. It'll be an outdoor space and an indoor space that'll have expandable, glass doors. All the residents will have access to it. We've talked about whether we wanted to make it, if the public wanted to rent out the space or something like that. I don't think we're gonna do that right now. I think we're just gonna make it a amenity just to the residents. But yeah, I mean, it'll be outdoor space, be able to look out on both on Taylor and on Main, outdoor couches, things like that, and be a kitchenette and
Barbecue?
we have to be careful, just insurance with open flames and all that kind of stuff, but we'll make sure it's, I think most of our barbecue stations will be down by the pool. So we'll kind of figure out whether or not it's, so maybe we might put an oven and a stove, upstairs in the kitchenette kind of area. So,
The patio that's at street grade is public.
Down at, yes, below, right. Okay, so,
I guess I would, just for, be specific, everything I just mentioned was up on the 4th floor. That's at the main rooftop.
Sure, is that only for residents responsible?
so if that's for public, is there access to that? Like when you're walking along, can you walk into that? Oh, I see it. Okay. And then what about security for the apartments that are gonna be ground level on Taylor Road? I mean, will those be secure?
It's the grade change, and so. Okay. Traffic, you go.
Will those be their, exterior, you know what I mean?
So these are at sidewalk grade, but as you can see, as you move south on Taylor Road toward Manchester Road, we've got to support the grade change with the roller board.
So there's not gonna be like a basement level, so to speak, that becomes ground as you get towards the south end.
The other developer was interested in the apartments. They showed the building that actually took a step down and we're thinking about doing underground parking. That particular developer is no longer involved and this is the preferred approach. It arose.
But yeah, there is no basement.
But I mean, as far as the ground level apartments, is that just all windows or is it exterior doors?
Every unit will have a patio or a balcony, whether it's on the first floor or second.
Okay,
The first floor would still have a rail across that.
so just a little security. I mean,
Like if you ever go to Kirkwood, the development where the minifig Lego store, resale store is, the street going down there where you can park for that, there's ground level apartments that just with patio doors and open patios all along there.
Well, with 18 assets as it was described, I'm sure they've had this issue and I'm sure that their residents are safe. From our perspective, we want to make sure that from perspective of someone in a vehicle on Taylor Road or on the sidewalk, that it looks good too.
This looks very impressive. Very well done.
That looks first class.
I believe in my heart that everyone's gonna be very proud of it. So I think the city and everybody that's touched this and had a lot of input, so really thanks to Ed, he's been shepherding the project for years. So, bringing it to fruition, and we're really hopeful we were gonna try to break ground this fall, but we think with MSD approvals, we're not sure that's gonna, because after this whole process, then you gotta get into permitting, and so it's.
City approvals too.
I mean, that's
This one too. But hopefully MSD is the law.
But we do think if everything kind of aligns up, it'd be maybe an end of February or March 1st start to break ground and start to bring it to life.
If I may, just for our team and everybody else, Mr. Village, would you kind of walk us through the timeline with the city? So tonight, you're going to ask for the commission to have the department prepare a recommendation, which you then will, I believe, submit to the full planning and zoning commission the first Monday in October. Is that correct?
Mr. Newberry and I have scheduled, so you'll see the final report on the site development plan, associated components at the next meeting, which I believe is October 7th. That'll be a receipt and file to the city council. No actions required by city council, but it'll be a receipt and file with mayor's permission to be on the agenda for October 14th. And then kind of disappears from all of yours perspective. We start with what we call the improvement plans, the construction drawings. That takes a while because we ask all the utilities, the Metropolitan St. Louis Sewer District to weigh in, and DNR will be involved because there's a disturbance over an acre, the fire district. There's a large group of commenters that review the plan. There's multiple iterations of changes, including ours as the city. The improvement plans are ultimately acted upon by the Department of Public Works, Mr. Brown, and the Department of Planning, Ms. Ripito, Mr. Newberry, and I. Then we go to plat. Not sure if we'll do plats.
Sorry, what?
Plats.
Yes,
We'll have a record plan.
we'll have a record plat. Yeah.
I don't know how the property lines are going to be adjusted. We knew that we needed a plat when 14 detached single-family dwelling lots. We've done some adjustments on this property before. We'll get some escrows as well, just to make sure that certain improvements are installed per plan. All in all, that's March 1 is probably an estimate of when it should be done. It's basically about 5.5 months from now.
So normally we would do approval and then it would come back in front of us a month later, but we're gonna combine both of those things this month.
It's the intent is to have Ms. Ripito, Mr. Newberry, and I write 2 reports based upon tonight's actions for the next meeting in October. I think it's, from my perspective, oftentimes the site development plan is the conclusion of the zoning process, and financial institutions, investors, they'd like to know that the zoning is done, and from that point forward, it's just kind of following the recipe of the code books, whether it be MSD, the fire marshal, or the city of Wildwood.
Mr. Rudich, do you have, before we vote on this, do you have anything that you would recommend for this or anything that you think we need to address?
Yeah, maybe a course of the next week and a half, we're going to talk about stormwater management again. George has done a good job of explaining that. At least from a commercial aspect, there's a high probability that the success we want. When that'll complement the buildings that are constructed, it'll be an asset to the community, not necessarily something tomorrow we can talk about because they're just scars on the landscape. They truly are.
So you're good with us?
I would have not have scheduled it for site plan subcommittee if we didn't feel comfortable moving forward. You have the protection that the architectural review board has seen it and approved it as well. And they had a lot of site plan questions, more so than, let's say, maybe some of the architecture.
If I may, Mr. Stott, am I correct that when we go for a record plat, there's going to be 3 lots? Let's call lot number 1 roughly 5.5 acres where 188 units will be. Lot number 2 probably will be the pickleball courts. And lot number 3 will be the 4.55 acres for whatever. And that will be the record plat.
Yeah, there's actually a draft in the package. I call it a preliminary plat because we're not acting on it, but it's sheet C 6.0. It's a preliminary plat. And as Mr. Cohen said, that's correct.
Yeah, effectively only creating 2 lots because the pickleball court is already its own lot.
Okay, right.
Yeah, so what we're having is, so we're vacating some of this east. Yeah. But some of the east gate would, there you go, that's it, yep, so. Really gonna be one big lot, two big lots. So we've got some cleanup because of the right of way that was dedicated needs to be moved. Ultimately, this is the future development, that'll be a lot. And then called the L shape is for the multifamily. And then like Eric just said, this was already plat, this is a legal platted lot. But this, we call the preliminary plat, just so you can see it in advance as part of the site development plan. And then as Mr. Vunich indicated, that'll come before with the site improvement plans in a few months from now.
And also, when you prepare the grading plan, the intent is to do mass grading of the entire 11.8 acres to take advantage of economy of scale and one mobilization.
The good news is the grading cuts, if you do over 38, you have it's 38 or 30 acres is the max. Mr. Brown, I think 30 acres is the maximum you can grade at one time. And then move on to the next phase of the project, so you're under that. I don't necessarily see an issue with disturbing about 5+ acres.
Mr. Cohen, why would you, just out of curiosity, why would you, I get the economy and doing it all at one time, I understand all that. But if you don't have something for the other 4.5 acres, why would, what would you grade it for?
Or what we think we're gonna do in the future.
Got it. Well, that's what I'm asking, I mean, you know.
The Ed's third time, we graded this, what, 10 years ago?
Yeah,
15
we
years ago?
certainly did.
Put some sewers in and graded.
There's gonna be some site balancing, I guess is the best way to describe it, yes.
Well, I know that we aren't doing the, at this time, the 11 houses or whatever it was. I know we're not doing those, but where is the road access for that other plat?
It comes in off, there's a curb cut already.
Off of what?
Taylor.
Taylor?
I think that's where the sewage treatment plants.
No, that's where the.
I was just curious. You don't have to look it up.
Well, and you view the Eastgate Lane, view that as a stub street.
Okay.
Because again, it's for public purposes.
Okay.
And by the way, as a footnote, the Department of Planning really wasn't thrilled with pre-grading the site previously. Around about at Manchester Road, Taylor Road. I'm a firm believer you grade it when you know what you're going to do. You know what you're going to do because the city's approved it.
It's already zoned.
I thought we had a grading permit, are you saying?
Well, we acquiesced and we ended up.
Okay, because it was a big sewer project, sanitary and storm sewer. We connected some storm sewers, right? It's been a while.
Yeah.
Right.
So at Main Street crossing, so should those front commercial lots have not been graded when they put that in, or is that different?
That was different because we wanted Main Street extended to Route 109. And the city entered in an agreement with Payne Family Homes to basically have them construct all of Main Street from Heatherton Road on the east to Route 109 on the west. And credit the TGA towards majority of the work. I think the city contributed some because the TGA amount fell short. But we felt that you couldn't do the development just based on sold access to Heatherton Road. In fact, development would proceed.
So Joe, what are you looking for tonight in order to move forward here?
The department would respectfully request the site plan subcommittee authorize the preparation of the final report.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Commissioner Rubis, second by Commissioner Bourne. And any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain?
Staying.
All right, motion passes with Commissioner Conan abstaining.
Thank you all
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you. Thank you for explaining that. It's the water, it's the water.
It is.
I live in Windcross, and I think of all those lakes, and so I do know.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
These guys were here.
Finish a meeting.
Yeah.
Where?
Joe, thank you. Travis, thank you. Good to see you guys. Get out of your way.
Right. That's it.
Pouring down rain in the rain.
Yay.
Famous last word.
All right.
Thank you.
I thank you.
So I know we have on the agenda the work session, which is continuing the work regarding amendments to subdivision and development regulations. But it also says depending on time available, and I feel like we owe them some time
Yes.
because they were getting ready for Celebrate Wildwood Friday, very hot. And even leading up to Friday. And then we're here Saturday from probably sunrise. Late, I would guess probably what, 11 o'clock, midnight or sometime. So I feel that they need a break and probably want to relax in their home for a little while before they come back again tomorrow.
I would agree with that.
That's fair.
And I would like to
Held
say.
the Rain off for you.
Yes, I would just like to say that you all, once again, did a phenomenal job. I know that there's a lot of volunteers, but these people in the city really, really do it. And so it was fantastic. So thank you.
So next year, we'll celebrate Wildwood at the Village Green.
The general contractor.
That is like, yes, please.
Still saying that, oh, how about this? The landscape architect that did the original master plan is working on the landscaping component for phase one. He went out to Pea Ridge Nursery last week and tagged a bunch of plantings that are shown on the approved landscape plan for phase one. We wouldn't have done that if we don't think we can get them in by November. So we're thinking we're gonna be done over there in the next month and a half to 2 months. So yes, celebrate Wildwood in September or October of 2025 will be at Village Green. Obviously, the heat was oppressive and obviously it affects people differently. But at the event Saturday, many of the commission members that oversee the Wildwood Celebration Commission talked about potentially moving that to early October.
Well, it was well done and everybody was kind. The food was divine and the music was good.
You had the concert and
No, not in the evening. I wasn't. I was painting and,
You would have loved it. It was rock and roll.
but I heard the fireworks. I could hear the fireworks. I was listening to it.
I was running around St. Louis all day and, what was it? I was at IKEA, left IKEA. My daughter calls me. It's the one night she didn't have to work. So I drove all the way out here to pick her up and she wanted to go to Vintage Vinyl. So then I turned around, and drove right back down to U City. And, anyway, saw a poster there advertising a vintage fair at Bottle Works. And so I was walking around there and I'm like, man, it is really hot for the end of September.
It is.
I have just one question and then I'm gonna make a motion for us to leave maybe. But just because these are apartments, where's the bus line end out here? I know we have that beautiful bus stop at West Glen Farms and Manchester. How
It
much
goes to
further
the
does it go?
college.
It does go all the way to
One
college?
There's one right by Deerberg's
I don't know, cause I
and
don't,
then the community college.
nice, okay.
Yeah, so if memory serves, the bus comes out Manchester, makes a left on Old Manchester, then goes down, turns on west, does a loop around that block by the bank with a stop at 109 and College.
Nice.
And then comes back down Manchester, left onto Taylor, stop at Deerberg's. And I think that might be where the route resets and then goes back.
Nice.
Stops the bus, goes into Deerberg's, gets his provisions.
Right.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
All right,
Again, thank you. I think we asked you to do extra meetings now, July, August, and September. So very much appreciated because we're making progress. So